Well, today I'm here to talk about Parkinson's disease, but before we get into that, we got to talk about self-communication, which I'm sure you already know about from everybody else, but I need that extra minute. So, in self-communication, the cells in our body are sending out and receiving signals constantly. And a self-communication disease is where something happens with these signals. Now, a cell can send the signal too late or not at all. The receiving cell may not respond, or in the case of Parkinson's, the signal could be blocked by something. And all of these cases end up in a self-communication disease. Now, in Parkinson's specifically, it affects dopamine levels. So, dopamine is created by neurons in your substantia nigra, and it's what sends signals to your brain for you to move. And when the nerve cells break down inside your substantia nigra, then the dopamine cannot be, or not enough dopamine is made. Now, let me think here. What words am I trying to think of? When the breakdown happens in your substantia nigra, and that's part of your basal ganglia inside of your ventral midbrain. And right here, this is your substantia nigra in your brain, and your basal ganglia is more in this area and in the middle. And what the substantia nigra is it's a melanin-containing nucleus inside of the ventral midbrain, of course, and it consists of the dopaminergic neurons. And those are what make the dopamine that gets sent to your basal ganglia. And all these neurons do is promote motor function. What really makes your body do what it does is your basal ganglia, which is sent signals by your motor cortex inside of your brain. And basically, the motor cortex is a kid in the playground that wants to do everything, and the basal ganglia is the parent that determines if that is a good idea or not. So, say for instance, you're walking down the street and your motor cortex says, hey, let's kick this pole, where your basal ganglia is like, no, it's going to hurt, don't do that. And it won't send that signal to your leg. Now, because of the breakdown of the neurons inside of your substantia nigra, there's not enough dopamine being made. But the dopamine that is made can't even make it outside of your brain because it's blocked by your brain's blood-brain barrier, which is basically a protective shield around your brain that stops anything coming in or going out that's considered bad. Now, the symptoms that are included with this because of this breakdown are, before I get to that, Parkinson's is a hyperkinetic disorder, which means there's too little motion with your body. And this is caused, of course, by lack of dopamine. And there are also hypokinetic disorders. Parkinson's is a hypokinetic disorder. The hyperkinetic disorders are too much motion. The hypo is too little motion. Now, hyperkinetic motions are when you get too much dopamine, and this results in things like Tourette's, like Meredith's presentation. And most symptoms are gradual, and you don't really notice them until they get really bad. And that's why it's hard to diagnose by a doctor, because they can't tell until you can really, they can see that you have Parkinson's, basically. And people might first start to notice a sense of weakness, or walking trouble, or stiff muscles. Now, what else happens? Some people might start to notice a tremor in their hands or a shake. And the thing about Parkinson's is it's a progressive disease, and it doesn't really all of a sudden happen. It just gets worse and worse over time. And there are 3 types of Parkinson's disease. And there's akinetic, which the person is very rigid. And in this, you'll see just a shuffling kind of walk. They'll stoop their shoulders more. Their head will be sunk down, and they'll have a mask-like face. And this is about 50% of cases. And the second type is tremor dominant, where action and resting tremor is most dominant. So that can be seen in eating. So when the person's maybe eating soup or cereal or something like that, they're shaking a lot with their spoon. Or if they're getting dressed, they're trying to put their pants on and they're shaking a lot. And there's that's about 40%. And the third type is mixed, and it's like you think, it's a mix between the other two where both are kind of showing up, and that's only 10% of cases. Now, there's no known cause of Parkinson's, but researchers suggest that it has to do with your genes and their environment. And the thing about Parkinson's too is there's no single thing that they see that gives you Parkinson's, and that's the big deal about it is it's all kind of built on top. It builds on top of one another. So, this is just a breakdown of the neurons inside of your substantia nigra over time. So this is your control, and after 1 year with Parkinson's, and 3 years and 4 years. This doesn't apply to everybody, but this is just a good thing to look at to show how those neurons break down and what happens that the dopamine doesn't get sent. Later on, I think. Yeah, this is the genes that are affected on all the chromosomes. And the only thing, the genetic mutations, that only causes risk in maybe 1 in 10 cases. And then sometimes parents can even pass it on to their kids, but it's really rare, and it's only the case in maybe 1 in 100 cases. Environmental factors such as Agent Orange in Vietnam, we had the war over there, or chemicals used in farming such as insecticides, herbicides, and fungicides can also be the cause. Other factors like where you working with metals like manganese, lead, and trichloroethylene can increase your risk. And all trichloroethylene is, I had to look it up, is a hollow-carbon commonly used as an industrial solvent in factories and such things. And things like age, family, race, gender, and where you live can affect your chances. So again, age, it affects older people, so usually around 60s or 70s. Your family, and of course your genes, your race, it's most seen in white people, and your gender, males often have it more than females, and where you live, people that live in rural areas are more common to get it because, again, of the farming with the insecticides and herbicides and things like that. They've also found that people with Parkinson's tend to have something called Lewy bodies in the brain, and what these are unusual clumps of a protein called alpha-synuclein. And the thing about it is the protein itself is normal, but the clumps are not, and they're found in parts of the brain that could affect sleep and sense of smell, and that could explain some other symptoms of Parkinson's not related to movement. Now, treatment for Parkinson's comes in the form of how do you get the dopamine to the rest of the body since it's blocked by your brain. Medications like carbidopa, levodopa are most effective because levodopa is the form of dopamine before it gets turned into dopamine, and so the levodopa is able to get out of the blood-brain barrier and then turn into dopamine, which goes to the rest of your body. But after years and years of taking this medicine, the effects start to wax and wane and have a tendency to wear off. And because of this, scientists have also used deep brain stimulation, and it's a surgical procedure that sends electrical pulses to your brain through electrodes. And this is often used in advanced cases of Parkinson's when, of course, the medication stops working as well. Of course, basic exercise can also be used, and things like massages and yoga just to stretch out those muscles and keep them from being so rigid. There are many famous people with the disease, and one of them is, of course, Muhammad Ali, who was a great boxer, and people like Michael J. Fox, and they have come together to really become great ambassadors and let people know about the disease and promote research for it. Ali developed the disease from strong hits to the head and things like that, which caused him to develop it early on after his boxing career. This also connects to things like CTE, which is a Parkinsonism and is connected to a lot of football players and repeated hits to the head, just like Muhammad Ali. So there's a connection there, and just I think that's all I got. Just Parkinson's is a very progressive disease, and there's no known cause. Thank you.